afternoon, all you beautiful people. Welcome back to BlockbusterBackrooms. Tonight's episode, we're looking at Isolation, a 2005 Irish horror written and directed by Billy O'Brien. Now, I gotta say, I watched this film for the first time only a few nights ago. And dang, I enjoyed it, man. Right, I have a bad habit of not reading the backs of DVDs. And based on the cover and name, I assumed that it would be your average slasher survival horror, where the characters are stuck in the middle of nowhere. Boy, were my assumptions wrong. What we were actually dealing with is a low-key body horror brought on through genetic experimentation. So with all that said, shall we take a look at it? As always, this is your spoiler warning. So, our film's all done in one location, which is a farm in the middle of nowhere. A lady drives up, passing a little caravan. This is the vet. She meets up with the farmer, Dan, and together they check on an unborn calf. While her hand's inside the cow feeling the baby, it bites her, drawing blood. The vet announces that something's wrong. We cut to Dan going up to the caravan to tell the owners they can't stay on private property. He ends up letting them stay the night after all, but says that they best be gone come morning. The vet returns with the doctor. The doctor's part of a genetics company that works with cows. We learn that whatever they're doing on Dan's farm is meant to be kept secret, so he's pretty annoyed there's a caravan by the front gate. I gotta say, throughout the movie, Dan just seems really sad. He has the face of a man who needs a hug. We see later that the main reasons for this are the fact he's unsure if he should be letting this guy experiment on his cows. Also, him and the vet used to be together, so there's underlying tension there, not to mention his dire financial situation. Our poor man has a lot on his plate. The vet is checking on the calf again, this time while the doctor is watching with an ultrasound. We learn as they talk that none of the pay promised to them has come through yet. The doctor gives a bullshit excuse and then gets mad when the vet says they should terminate the experiment. She shows him the wound on her hand and explains what she felt, but he shuts her down real fast. That night, Dan finds his cow in labour. After trying to help, he runs inside to try and call the vet. However, his landline's down. He runs to the caravan and asks the dudes there for help. He's greeted with hostility, and not having time to argue or persuade them, he runs back to his cow. The two peeps in the caravan are Mary and Jamie. There's a bit of a subplot here, but it's more just a reason to explain why these 20-somethings are hiding out on a dude's farm in the middle of nowhere. Mary tells Jamie he should go help Dan because, well, she's a good person. Jamie sheepishly shows up and Dan explains that they could lose both animals if they don't get the calf out ASAP. The two dudes struggle and Dan's just like, this is nuts. I've never had one this difficult. They eventually get the calf out, but it's not breathing. Dan's quick to fix the situation, and he eventually exclaims that something's wrong and reaches into the calf's mouth to see if there's anything blocking its airways. It bites him. Pulling his hand out, we see that it's hella hicked up. Bro, you can make out the bone, it's gnarly. The boys rush to the house. Phone's still down, they have to make do with what's in the kitchen, as Dan has no first aid kits, despite working on a dairy farm. The boys return, and they find Mary with the calf. Jamie pulls her away and tells Dan that he needs to kill it. Dan, as thanks for their help, tells them they can stay on the farm as long as they like. Not long later, the vet returns, mad that she can't get a hold of Dan over the phone. Man's just like, they haven't paid me yet, and I can't pay my bills without money. What am I meant to do? The vet notices Dan's hand and learns that the calf's been born. Dan explains that they had to separate it from its mum because it kept biting her. Sure enough, the vet finds that the calf has some pretty nasty teeth scattered throughout its mouth. She tries to call the doctor on her cell, wanting to terminate the experiment again, but he won't pick up. She decides to take matters into her own hands. She has this special gun-like thing that basically pops out a huge needle. Just as she pulls the trigger, the calf moves its head, which results in it getting, I guess I could say scalped. It results in it getting scalped pretty much. The mum, hearing her baby in pain, freaks out, and in attempts to get to her calf, she ends up stuck on the railings separating them. Everything's chaotic as the vet unjams the gun. The cow's still struggling and ends up flipping itself over the railing and onto its back. In the end, both animals are killed. The vet, wanting to know what's happened, dissects the calf. She finds the organs have overgrown, and as she sorts it all out, she finds these weird white sacs and realizes, after cutting them open, that they're fetuses. The forming cows, if you can call them that, look kind of like a curled up centipede lobster hybrid thing. And they have a vaguely cow-styled head. There's 6 in total, and it's fucking gross all my life. The bones are vaguely clear and on the outside, but not like an exoskeleton on a bug. More like the flesh grew in the wrong place. Then one starts to flip and move. Oh, it's yucky. And it was at this point it truly dawned on me what type of horror I had put on. And it totally added to the sense of spookiness and anticipation. I was sitting there going, is this going to be the film that fricks me up? Will I sleep okay tonight? Because, my dear listeners, we all have a type of horror that actually spooks us. For me, it's a specific type of body horror where the person has to watch and feel as their body mutates and falls apart into something no longer human. Take Bite, The Fly, or Tetsu the Iron Man, for example. None of which I've actually seen yet, but I know what goes on in there to know that they're probably gonna freak me out a little bit. This fear is hella deep-seated from when I was about 10 and watched an episode of Symbiotic Titan, and it just messed me up. Shout out to anyone who recognizes that name, by the way. For anyone who doesn't know, it was a kids show in the early 2000s, and before you say anything, the show was 100% suitable for kids. I was just a pussy as a child. It's both ironic, funny, and not something I'm gonna get into right now. Dan's just like, bro, what the hell? And the vet tries to explain that they were trying to make more fertile cows so they could produce more offspring. However, something's gone wrong. Quite obviously, since a newborn calf is pregnant with like 6 gross little worm things. Dan's rightfully pissed, and the vet's pretty upset herself. She leaves after telling Dan to quarantine the bodies as there may be risk of infection. As they talk, we see one of the fetuses wriggle away. The next morning, Jamie and Mary are helping Dan. Jamie goes to feed the cows while Mary helps Dan with his wounded hand. Dan assures Mary that he'll go back into town with the vet when she returns so that he can see a doctor. As the two talk, Jamie hears a cow away from the ones he was feeding, and he goes looking for it. I believe they were experimenting on this one as well, which is why it's quarantined from the others. The ground's practically a big puddle, and Jamie jumps over the gate into it. As he goes over to feed the cow, he notices a bunch of cuts on its back legs. He gets attacked himself as he leaves. Something in the water managed to bite through his gumboot. Dan comes and takes a look at the cow and admits to having no idea what could have caused the cuts. And as they talk, a policeman arrives. They talk a bit and we find out that the vet crashed her car up the road, but they can't find her. Dan pretty much tells him the truth, that she came to help with the calf and then left. The officer's real rude to Mary, telling her she should move the caravan, despite the fact that Dan keeps repeating that he's happy to let her stay a few nights. They end up moving the caravan into one of the barns to avoid any more hassles, but oh man, I don't like that policeman. Dan realizes that the vet returned in secret late last night as he finds one of the cages unlocked and the mother cow that was killed is dissected. Dan lets the Geo know not to get too close as the body may be infected with something, and Mary tells him to just outright burn it. So he does. That night, Dan goes out to check on everything and finds the doctor's back. He shows him the remains of the burnt cow and tells him that the vet looked unwell when she left last night and now she's missing. The doctor doesn't say much other than asking why the caravan is now in the barn. I dislike the doctor. He ignores everyone else and never seems to really take their concerns seriously, which, I mean, if you're doing these experiments with like a trained vet who knows her shit, you'd want to maybe listen to her. I don't know, just an idea. They go to a mini lab that's set up on the farm. Inside one of the fridges is the calf. He gets the animal out and tells Dan to leave while he checks it all out and sees what's up. He takes a swab from the fetus and takes a look. The cells are multiplying hella fast. He relooks at the ultrasound and what's happening finally sinks in. While the doctor gets his science on, Mary and Jamie are going hard in their caravan. Mary tells him to slow down, but Jamie doesn't listen and finishes super fast. I actually kinda high-key laughed at this scene, because Mary's just so obviously dissatisfied and a little annoyed. She's also a little worried though, and asks him if he's okay. Jamie admits that the bite on his foot is really troubling him. However, they end up going to sleep, and oh my lord, that nasty-ass cow fetus thing has grown to the size of, like, a cat. And you know what it does? It breaks into the caravan and goes under the covers of our duo's bed as it tries to wriggle inside Mary through her no-no square. Mutated cow fetus parasites trying to crawl inside you through your coochie is a massive nope from me. I hope it would be a pretty big nope for most people, to be honest. Luckily, our girl wakes up. It takes her a while though, and I was screaming the whole time. She gets out of bed, and the boys end up searching the caravan, but they can't find it. Jamie and Mary want to leave, but the doctor stops them. He explains that they have to quarantine the farm and find the mutated fetus that's gotten away. Leaving Mary in Dan's house, the boys are on the hunt. They find a lot of Dan's livestock covered in cuts. At the same time, the doctor learns that Jamie got bitten. However, his freakout's cut short by a screech. They think the thing's hiding in the slurry pit, but Dan thinks he might be able to scare the creature out. Our man drives his tractor into the pit and it gets stuck. I originally had a bit where I go on about how this was a real dumb move, but then I was like, hey, you're not a farmer. Maybe they do this. So I hopped on the phone to my best mate, who spent most of her life working on her parents' farm. Explained the situation, and boy did I learn stuff. Legit though, I actually learned a lot. And farmers will drive their tractors into the stuff to skim the top for fertilizer use and things like that. So it wasn't as big of a dumb move as I thought it was. However, they probably wouldn't go that deep into the pit. It's also how I learned about slurry pits, since I only knew about offal pits, which would have made this entire ordeal way worse. I also found out that it's quite easy to get a cow prickers and how you go about it. It's gross. I'm moving on. Thanks for all the wild info, Molly. You're a legend. So, Dan's in the slurry pit, trying to get out. He eases himself into the sludge and starts to make his way out. I gotta say, he keeps his injured hand out of the water, which is attention to a small detail that I love. He trips over, and it's the vet's body. It dislodges and springs to the surface. They get her out and take a look at the body. The doctor and Jamie find a bunch of bite marks and a big hole in the side of her stomach, the cow fetus having eaten most of her intestines. They flip her over, seeing the hole go straight through her, and the doctor explains that she must have been attacked and ended up falling into the pit. The slurry, making the body cold, would have prompted the mutant to move on. The doctor takes a swab and sees the cells are forming just as fast as the last cells he looked at, except this time human cells are in the mix too. He adds some of his own blood to the equation and realizes that humans can be infected as well. It would only take a bite, and any kids those people have would be fricked, just like the car from the start of the movie. Jamie gets super scared and refuses to let the doctor look at the bite on his foot. The situation escalates, and Jamie announces that him and Mary are leaving, so the doctor kills him. I know Jamie's just really scared, which is why he wouldn't let the doctor take a look at him, but it might have been a good idea. The doctor does say he could help, and I mean, he's an asshole, but I do believe him. After all, He is the only one who quarantined y'all to try and keep cows safe. So now human lives could be seriously affected. I'd imagine he'd take the situation even more seriously. Maybe I'm just being too positive about the man. He probably would have killed Jamie either way. If Jamie had have played it a bit cooler, he may have survived though, or had a better chance in the situation. Saying something like, "Shouldn't we catch the creature before taking time up on me?" Or, "Let me go get Mary, please. This is really scary, and I don't want to be alone right now." Anything other than telling the man enforcing a quarantine that you're gonna leave. Dan and Mary hear some of the scuffle and come out to see what's happening. They find the doctor over the body of another dead cow. He explains that the fetus creature will climb inside a host and eat its insides until it either runs out of food or grows too big, in which case it will burst out of its current host body and go find a new one. It's a parasite. While he's telling Dan this, Mary leaves to try and find Jamie. The boys go to the last isolated cow. The doctor kills it, cutting it open to find the calf's gone. So they have to go find it before any more of these fetus parasites become a problem, which proves to me that this isolated cow was another one they were experimenting on, and that cow, it was pregnant. That's why I'm talking about a second calf here. Probably didn't explain that too well, but oh well, let's move on. So Dan's pissed. Pissed that the scientist doesn't care about the animals, pissed that the vet's dead, and pissed that his farm, his livelihood, is ruined. He says he's had enough and he's getting the cops. So the doctor kills him. Mary sees all of this go down and yeets. She's running through this old milking shed in the dark and falls into one of the lower areas. She's making a bunch of noise, which kinda annoys me, since she's trying to avoid the doctor who's looking for her. She finds Jamie's body at the same time the doctor finds her. However, she's able to escape as the fetus parasite they were originally after jumps out and attacks the doctor. Mary runs into Dan, who's not actually dead, just pretty hecked up. They see that the parasite's moving around under the floor in the drain system. Mary climbs into the drains with the needle gun. She ends up finding the missing calf, who's given birth to more of these fetus parasites. She kills the calf and crushes the parasites before the original fetus parasite starts to chase her. Dan manages to draw the parasite away, and Mary escapes the drains. The parasite attacks Dan as he screams for Mary to go. Mary's a bro though. She gets it off of Dan, and she's able to push it into some whirring machinery, crushing it. She then hits the body over and over again with a metal pole, pulverizing it. She gets Dan into the car to get away, but sadly, as he sits down, he dies from his wounds. 6 months later, we see Mary's pregnant from that totally satisfying, definitely enjoyable sex she had earlier in the movie. The doctor tells her that she has a perfectly normal baby. But of course, we know different as we end the movie with a close-up of the ultrasound. And that's the movie. Okay, thoughts? Well, the mate I hit up got curious and ended up watching the movie, and I've been told it was all pretty accurate to what a mega rundown farm would be like. So props to our team for actually doing research and knowing about this stuff. Farm accuracy aside, I found the movie quite enjoyable. The ideas were interesting, and of course, I'll always praise the use of practical effects. As for the mutated fetus designs, I loved them. They're icky, gross, and the idea of touching them gives me anxiety. It's great. For the one that grows bigger, I really love how they never show us the entire thing properly. See, I know this is a thing peeps will be torn on, as some want to see the monster in all its glory. But I think they made the right choice in this film. While seeing the monster in its entirety here wouldn't have cheapened the film. After all, the effects are good. But not seeing all of it, I feel, adds to the sense of mystery and intenseness the film has, as you're constantly trying to make more out while your brain fills in the gaps for you. Also, big props for the use of practical effects. I will always praise that. As for the characters, I like them. Mary and Dan are def's my favourites, but they're all pretty good. The acting's good. There's not really too much to say here. And there's also not too much to say about the cinematography and music. While I'm no expert, there's only really 1 or 2 shots that stand out, feeling a little artsy and interesting. While the music is mainly just one score repeated in specific areas. The upside to this being, if I hear it, I'll defs know what film it came from. Earlier in the review, I mentioned that I thought I'd get super spooked. Other than the coochie scene, nothing really got to me. And even then, it just made me consider wearing pants to bed that night. I don't want people walking away from this thinking they're going to get a big spook when they put the film on. 'Cause you're not. Which isn't a bad thing, as most horror isn't actually scary. It's just fun and enjoyable. I think what got to me the first time I watched it was the anticipation of what they were going to do. I was expecting some body horror type stuff that would keep me up at night. Where we start to watch these people mutate and transform because of these weird parasite things. However, the film stays pretty grounded and nothing like that occurs. I think I'd be interested in a sequel where Mary's parasite baby fucks shit up. Now that could be some real nightmare fuel if handled with the same care and tact as this film. All in all, I enjoyed the movie and definitely recommend giving it a watch if you haven't seen it already. Now, if you lovely people enjoyed this and are interested in more reviews, you can find all my episodes up on mpr.nz/show/BlockbusterBackrooms. Or, if you'd like to see what else I do, you can find me across most social media like Instagram and even YouTube under Shit-imma-artist. That's IMMA, cause that be how I talk. I hope you all have a good night, and I'll talk to you next week. Same time, same place.